Hey everybody. Um Welcome back to episode 45 of the FilmBrony Podcast. I am of course the guy in charge of this, Nick Nino, and I know it's been 2.5 months and well well I'm gonna let Soren introduce himself as usual. So
Yeah, it's been a hot 2.5 months, but to make up for it, we have a shit ton to cover in this podcast.
yeah, hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, oh God, the echoes. Hold on. Hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry about that, folks. Technical difficulties as usual. My computer's being a real dick bad today, and yeah. All right, so okay, so I have a lot of explanation as to why it's been 2.5 months. It's just we do apologize that this. Actually, I'm the one to apologize the most for this because you see, it's just my family and I are going to be moving the very next month in June to a new house, and I got to have everything ready by then. And
Ah, crap.
here I am.
Echo.
Here I am. Sorry about that. Okay, so you gotta love how my piece of shit computer and phone are like interrupting the podcast and stuff. But yeah, that's the reason why I haven't been on the pod. We haven't been doing the podcast lately. It's just how do I explain this? Okay, I explained that my family and I are moving out soon to a new house, and I gotta have everything ready by then. We're gonna be moving at the end of June, so that's why I haven't been having a lot of time like reviewing a lot of the new movies that came out within the past like 4 months. But I did have some time to review the films, and we're gonna be talking about the ones on the podcast today, and also. Also, we're gonna have this new segment called. We're gonna have this new segment presented on tonight's podcast, starting with this one, and it'll be a mainstay for the podcast. It's called the dog and the pig, and the dog of the show and the pig of the show, and Soren will explain what it is in just a little bit when we get to it, and plus we're gonna list off our top 5 most anticipated films of the summer, and as well as our least anticipated film of the summer, and yeah. Also, I want to mention too one last thing before we begin. We're gonna be doing 2 podcasts. You guys are deserving of 2 podcasts later this month. This is the one we're doing tonight, and then we're going to do it again. We're going to do episode 46 at the end of the month. So you guys are getting not 1 but 2 podcasts this month. So be on the lookout for those. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get started with tonight's show. Starting with our usual thing, which is the Blu-ray Showcase.
All right, it's been 2.5 months, and so I got a ton of Blu-ray. So let's get this over with. The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon collection. I have The Big Picture, Flatliners, the original, Hollow Man, Trapped in the Cut, and Where the Truth Lies. 20th Century Women.
Nice.
James Cameron's The Abyss.
That's a very good film. One of James Cameron's most underappreciated. One of James Cameron's finest works, in my opinion.
An American in Paris. Bad Words. Hello? Hello? I hear him. Oh, shit, here we go again. Technical difficulties again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I showed off An American in Paris and Bad Words. I also have Bluey Seasons 1 and 2.
Great show.
Children of the Corn and Sleepwalkers.
Nice. Oh, one last thing before you continue. To the fans of Bluey saying that the show is ending, it's not. It may have ended its third season, but they're not ending the show entirely. They're just taking a break.
Yeah.
Are we clear on that? Good.
Okay. Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer.
Nice.
Courage the Cowardly Dog.
A classic show.
Dark Waters.
That's a great film.
Drag Me to Hell. The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Dumb and Dumber 2.
Nice.
Election.
That's a great film.
Elemental.
I really like that one.
Fast X. Fly the Navigator.
Good one.
4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh, that's a classic by Mike Newell.
Freaky Friday, the reboot.
Sweet.
Girls Trip.
I love that. I really enjoyed that film a lot.
The Goodbye Girl.
It's a classic.
The Gray.
Great film.
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
I love that film.
Hancock.
Nice.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Really enjoyed that film a lot.
Horrible Bosses and Due Date.
Nice.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Nice.
A guilty pleasure from last decade, I, Frankenstein. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The Iron Claw.
I also have that film. I'll be showing that a little. Mm-hmm.
Last of the Mohicans.
Michael Mann. That's a very good film.
The Little Mermaid, the remake. Norma Ray.
It's a classic.
Pain and Gain. Peacemaker, Season 1.
Nice.
Poor Things.
I also have that film too.
Priscilla.
I also have that film too.
Remains of the Day.
That's a great film.
Return to Oz.
Nice.
Rob Roy.
I love that film. Liam Neeson is fantastic in that film, and so is Jessica Lange.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Nice.
Secondhand Lions. Shine.
Great film.
Silent Night. Smiling Friends Season 1.
Nice.
Snow White and the Huntsman. Starman. Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2.
Sweet.
Straw Dogs DOG version.
Nice.
Team America World Police.
America! Fuck yeah!
Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
I also have that film too.
Tess, Roman Polanski's Tess. Disney's Three Musketeers. To Serve with Love. The Way We Were.
I really enjoy those films a lot.
We Bought a Zoo. Wednesday Season 1.
Wednesday Season 1. Well, to be honest, I hated the film, but Tom and Jerry was a bit worse too.
Yeah, it's a bit worse.
Also, thank you, by the way.
Yeah. White Man Can't Jump, the OG version.
Nice.
The Wild One.
Nice.
Wide Open, Jesse James. And last but not least, this behemoth, the Ingmar Bergman collection.
Wow. Okay, I was able to buy some Blu-rays myself during my time away. Some of them I was really excited to get, and believe it or not, a couple of them are movies that came out in 2003 that actually got a Blu-ray release last year and this year. I'll explore what they are, and here we go. The Triplets of Belleville.
That's a classic one right there. Although,
I love this movie.
Didn't you get that one a couple of years ago? I remember.
Yes, I did. But the thing is that this copy right here that I originally got didn't have a lot of bonus features in it. This one does.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah. And then the other one I got is one of my all-time favorite documentary films, The Fog of War.
Not too familiar with that one. I'll have to seek it out.
You got to check it out, man. Basically, I'll give a quick summary really quick before I move on. Basically, it's about Robert McNamara and his time and his time like during like working with John F. Kennedy and stuff. Like, there are some political aspects to the documentary, but they are important to the story. And you could also describe this documentary as being like an anti-war, because it is exploring like the 11 lessons involving like war and stuff. So, and how he ended up becoming one of the most controversial political figures in the 20th century. So check it out, guys. It is a great film. Even if like I said, I'm not usually into political stuff, but this is one of those times where the documentary actually got me interested. This is one of those times where the documentary actually had me hooked. And it's directed by Errol Morris, the guy that directed some other great documentary films like The Thin Blue Line and A Brief History of Time. And Mr. Death. I forgot to mention. All right, moving on. Isle of Dogs.
One of Wes's best.
I agree. And then I got two Avengers movies. Avengers Infinity War. And Avengers Endgame.
Both are my number 2 favorite movie of all time, as you all know.
Right. And then I mentioned Priscilla. I know you weren't a fan of this movie, Søren, but I love this movie. Dream Scenario.
Yeah.
The Iron Claw, as I mentioned before. The Color Purple, I really love this. I really love this film. It really surprised.
I'll have to get that remake sometime.
It really surprised the hell out of me. Yes, I still prefer the original by Spielberg more, but this was still a great reimagining, regardless. Another movie you weren't a fan of, but and admittedly, I didn't quite love it as much. I didn't quite love it at first, but then I thought about it more, and I was like, you know what, this was one of my favorite movies of last year, Ferrari.
Meh.
And finally, yep, Poor Things, number 5 of last year.
I would say Emma Stone deserved that Oscar, but my pick was Lily Gladstone.
Mine too. I mean, yes, it is. It is good to see Emma Stone get her second Oscar, but yeah, Lily Gladstone should have got it.
Yeah,
that was the only thing that was disappointing about this year's Oscars, along with the in memoriam blunder. But we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it for the Blu-ray Showcase. Why don't we get on with our movie reviews now? Because I have seen only like a few of the movies that came out. Our movie reviews are going to be really short for this week's for tonight's podcast. So,
not again. Why do I feel like I'm gonna have to play this music a lot here?
Hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Thank goodness.
No, I'm just gonna have the Kevin MacLeod music on standby from now on, just in case. Anyways, on to our first movie review, The Beekeeper. Now, shit. Sorry for laughing. Anyways, on to The Beekeeper.
Sorry. Go ahead.
In a filmography like David Ayer's that ranges from good to mediocre, this was surprisingly decent. Jason Statham continues to play the same gruff action hero he's been playing for who knows how long, and he continues to pull it off as he takes down this group of scammers who wronged a friend of his. The action sequences are fun and brutal enough, even if the writing isn't necessarily great. Like, take a shot for every bee pun in this movie. Also, Judge Hutcherson wasn't the least bit believable as a villain, and I know that's kind of the joke, but it can only go so far. And the ending was somewhat rushed. So while this isn't anything great or spectacular, it's still a decent enough way to kick off 2024, and I'll give it the seal of accuracy.
I like this movie. And you know what? I'll be damned that this is David Ayer's. That this is one of David Ayer's better movies in years. Yes, I made a bee pun right there. See what I did there? I said bee. I'll be damned.
And a part of our report card, all bees.
Yeah, I like this movie. Now, the premise is really dumb. I'm not going to deny that. There's no denying about this. But what makes it work is that it's self-aware that it's dumb, that the premise is dumb, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. And that's why I ended up getting on board with this film. The acting is solid, especially from Jason Statham, who's really good in the film. It's nicely directed. The story, even despite its cliches, still had me invested, and the score was solid. The cinematography is solid. It's nicely edited, and there are some really good action sequences as well. And Josh Hutcherson was really solid. I see you got the Bluey figures.
Yeah, I meant to show it off during the Blu-ray Showcase, but what are you gonna do?
Oh well. Anyway, yeah, are you serious? Are you serious? Yeah, I'm not kidding, folks. Listen to what Ethan says. In case you folks have missed it, the creative lead of the Lazy Town movie, Zachy Paul, has decided to harass me and 3 fellow users on YouTube because he didn't like what he had to say. Zachy Paul, shame on you. And the thing is that if you don't know what we're talking about, by the way, there was this guy named Zachy Paul who made the Lazy movie, who made the Lazy Town movie, and it's like on like Go Animate or like VV on, and it's like the cheapest looking versions of the characters I've ever seen. And worst of all, Zachy Paul decided to use like AI voices, AI generated voices, and worst of all, last year, this guy decided to pull. Amazon all of a sudden decided to have this movie up on their Prime, on Amazon Prime, for like a couple bucks. Yeah, that means you have to pay to see a cheap knockoff. That honestly makes Video Brinquito look good in comparison. Yeah, I'm going that far. And And you know what's even more insulting about this? You could watch this movie online on YouTube for free.
Or better yet, just watch clips of the real Lazy Town on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, I didn't see the tax collector, but I thankfully avoided that one like the plague. So, um, yeah, David Ayer has not directed a critical hit since Fury 10 years ago. And the last David Ayer film I saw was Suicide Squad 2016, and we already know how that turned out.
I'm probably one of the only people who still liked it, but
and one last thing about me praising the film, about me praising the Beekeeper, Josh Hutcherson. He was absolutely gives out a better performance here than he did in that Five Nights at Freddy's film last year. Because at least he's the villain in the film, and he was actually enjoyable as the villain. Unlike in Five Nights at Freddy's, where he was like the main hero, except he comes across as an absolute dickbag. But yeah. Now, if I had to point out some things that I didn't like about the film, the screenplay it's not good. Then again, it doesn't surprise me that it's written by the same guy that wrote that was one of the writers of Expendables 4, one of the worst movies I saw last year. And it does suffer, and there are some cliches that the film uses, and the film does have its share of cliches that you've seen in other films before, and it does suffer through a couple pacing issues too. Also, I hated the FBI agent character in the film. I understand she's supposed to serve a purpose in the story, but she's one of those characters that basically contradicts herself. I'm not going to get too much into it, but once you see the film, you'll probably get what I'm saying. But overall, it was a solid film. 7 out of 10, or solid B.
anyways, next is the Book of Clarence. The story about a man in ancient Rome who claims to be a prophet for fame could have easily been a cheap jab at Jesus' life, but I will give director James Samuel credit for making this more than being much more. I will say there are some weird editing choices, as well as some unfair music and a few jokes that didn't land. But the cast makes it all work. As to the themes of faith and repentance, much like I There God's Me Margaret last year, I'd much prefer a movie like this that tries something new rather than just being a generic preachy faith-based film. I'll, I'd say give this movie a watch regardless of your religion, and I'll give it the seal of accuracy.
For me, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. Yeah, there were some weird editing choices, and that felt jarring and uneven, and there's a couple pacing issues that the film suffers through as it is, and I did think the film was a bit too long, and but otherwise though, this was a very good retelling of like the Bible, but just with a but with a little twist. And what I really liked about this movie was that like Monty Python's Life of Brian, it the thing is that like Monty Python's Life of Brian, it is like satirizing the political epics, whether it's like Ben-Hur or The Greatest Story Ever Told, and how it was executed was actually really well done. Excuse me a second. All right, I'm back on this. Um, Oh, you can't be serious. Fuck you, Bob Iger. Anyway, as I was saying, what I really liked about this movie was that, like Life of Brian, it is the retelling of like. Now it is a retelling of the Bible, but with a little twist to it. But like Life of Brian, it is a retelling of the beloved. Well, sorry. Like Monty Python's Life of Brian, it is a satire on the political epics, whether it's like Ben-Hur or The Greatest Story Ever Told, and how it was done was actually pretty good. Now, granted, like I said before, there were a couple editing choices that the movie made that came up as being a bit distracting. There's also a romance subplot that did feel a bit shoehorned in, and the film does suffer through a couple pacing issues as well, but that's it. That's it. The story felt highly engaging. James Samuels' writing and directing were great. The acting was terrific. Lakeith Stanfield absolutely gives out a terrific performance as both Clarence and Thomas. Omar Sy was also fantastic, and he had some funny moments in the film too. All the other cast, including like James McAvoy, Alfred Woodard, and Anna Diop, David I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. David Orleo, and Benedict Cumberbatch are also great in the film as well. I also really liked the soundtrack. It had terrific cinematography as well as terrific production values and costume design, and I really liked the humor in the film. Like when the humor hits, it hits really well. Like the comedy came from how it puts like a funny spin on those like political epics, and it actually really worked. And the thing is that also let me just say this right off the bat. It's not meant to accurately reflect history. Let me just say that right now. Those people who are saying that oh, it's making fun of Jesus and religion and stuff. Stop. It's not. I don't see how this is making fun of Jesus and religion. Yeah, it's satirizing some of the political epics, but it's not making fun of Jesus or religion.
No, it's not.
Like I said, it's satirizing the political epics, like those men in sandals. Got that? Anyway, and its messages and themes on brutality, oppression of the empire, knowledge versus belief, and the role of religion in our lives felt well executed, especially with how the movie explores those themes in a well-detailed manner. Yeah, overall, I really like the Book of Clarence, and I give it an 8 out of 10 or a B+.
Next, we have the Mean Girls musical, and honestly, this movie feels like a half-assed Disney live-action remake, where it's just the same movie but without the freshness. Certain movies that were iconic in the original film were just watered down here. I know this is how the stage show was, but at least something like The Producers or most recently The Color Purple had different stuff in them. The cinematography was kind of bland. The acting and songs were okay, but nothing that extraordinary. And honestly, the best way I can say to this movie is stop trying to make fetch reboot happen, Gretchen. It's not gonna happen. Which is why Mean Girls 2024 gets a seal of mediocrity.
For me, I thought it was decent, but nothing amazing. I'm not really that crazy about it. Although I did think it was decent. I am so dreading that film. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care if Barry Jenkins is directing the film.
That trailer looks awful.
Yeah, really. And it didn't help that the remake was one of the worst films I saw from 2019. So, yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, it's nicely directed. The acting was solid, and I actually did like the musical numbers. I actually did like the musical numbers and the cinematography. Um, there are some funny moments that the film produces throughout, and I did like the social commentary on like how like involving like Gen Z and like the internet and stuff and Gen Z and like social media. I thought that was brilliantly handled. But what what really did hurt the film from being great was what really did hurt the film was that the story is basically the same thing as the original. Nothing new, nothing less. And I also had a problem with the screenplay as well. It wasn't a terrible screenplay, but with some of the dialogue feeling clunky and basically repeating some of the lines from the original, I just couldn't help but think, really, that's the best you can come up with. There were also some editing choices that felt a bit jarring. It suffers through a lot of pacing issues here and there, and there were some cliches that that did feel. There were some cliches that you have seen in other films before, including the original Mean Girls. Overall, I thought it was decent. It was well acted, and there aren't and it is fun. It is a fun film. It is a fun musical remake, but um but it's nothing short to write home about. So, and that's why I give the Mean Girls remake a musical remake a 6 out of 10 or a B minus. Again, decent movie, but nothing to write home about.
Next we have ISS, and this movie is clearly trying to be if Alien was a conflict between Americans and Russians, and unfortunately, this movie just fails to stand out. I will say the director certainly knows her craft, and the cast was pretty good, but the characters are just so bland, so forgettable that it's hard to root for them. What doesn't help is that the CGI shots of the spacecraft just don't look real, and the ending
No,
was
they
less than
don't.
satisfying. Not the worst sci-fi thriller of its kind, but certainly not worth going out of your way to see. I'll give it the seal of mediocrity.
I'm with you on this one. I did not like this movie at all. Now, granted, the acting is very good and it's nicely directed. The musical score is solid and the cinematography is great. Unfortunately, and there are a couple of tension film moments, but that the film displays, which I was very impressed by. But other than that, though, I wasn't really impressed with the whole film either. I wasn't really impressed with the whole film either, honestly. Like, I get it's supposed to be like a claustrophobic, like, I get it's supposed to present a claustrophobic, like, feel of like what it's like to be on that spaceship and stuff, and I get it's supposed to be like Alien with this, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work, especially if it's something I've seen in a lot of films before. Like for example, Gravity and Ad Astra. I would rather watch those films than sit through this again because both of those films were great. This one isn't. This is not one of those films at all. Um, also,
Again. Don't worry about copyright, folks. This song is royalty free, so I think we're good.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks. I might plan to get a new computer soon because of how much. Honestly, it's the cooling fan error. Yeah, I may need to get a new computer soon.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mark, Mufasa, the lazy king, the lazy ass king, and Craven the fart knocker. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, it just doesn't work if the film like suffers through a lot of cliches that I've seen in other films before. And it doesn't help that the story, it was just hard for me to get invested in the story due to how cliched it felt. The writing was bad, especially in terms of its dialogue and characterized and how bland the characters felt. It suffers through a lot of pacing issues here and there. The editing was not that great. The editing was all over the place. And another problem I have with the film, and while the film does offer a couple of tension-filled moments in it, my problem with this movie is that while the film does have a couple tension-filled moments in it, my problem with this movie is that the tension in this one feels so lackluster. Because of how bland the characters go, you don't feel any tension whatsoever. And, oh my god, the CGI. This is the first ever space film I've ever seen. This might be the first ever space film I've seen where the CGI didn't look that convincing. Like in previous films, like Ad Astra, Gravity, and First Man and Interstellar, you could tell the CGI, the visual effects on those movies were so well done that it made you believe that these actors were really in space. But in this one, you could obviously tell. But in this one, it was obvious from the very beginning that it was like, that's green screen effect. Yeah, that's obvious green screen effects, and not good ones either. And the ending felt so underwhelming, to say the least. Yeah, 4 out of 10 or C minus. I really did not like this one at all.
And the next movie isn't much better either, Argyle. On one hand, the cast On one hand, the cast is as stellar as we come to expect from Matthew Vaughn, with Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell as standouts. The action sometimes is a lot of fun, and the music is mostly fun too. However, this was a mess. While the physical action is fun to see, they often indulge on this cheap-looking CGI, which makes you wonder how this even cost $200 million to make. Plus, it's too slow in the middle, and really...
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice that too. Like, Jesus!
And they really overindulge in these plot twists, which, unlike Missing, which keep you engaged, here it's just more jarring than ever. Also, there's a major plot point that involves the Beatles song Now and Then, even though the song just came out 3 months before this movie was released. And without spoiling anything, they claim the song was prevalent to a certain aspect in the main character's life years ago. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So that begs the question, does this movie take place in the future or something? And what did Matthew Vaughn know that we didn't when he made this movie back in 2021? So while the movie is fun at times, it's really messy at other times, and it's an underwhelming step in the director's career, and I'll give Argyle the seal of mediocrity.
Man, this is the first Man, we're already talking about February films already, and this is the first big disappointment of 2024. Matthew Vaughn has made some good movies in the past, whether it's like Layer Cake or Kingsman: The Secret Service and X-Men: First Class, but this is not one of them. And it didn't help that his last movie, The Kingsman, was disappointingly mediocre. It didn't help that his last film, The Kingsman, was disappointingly mediocre. This, though, makes The Kingsman look good in comparison, honestly. Yeah, I really did not like this. I mean, here's what I'll say about the film. The acting, okay. There are some good performances by Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell, and they also deliver some good chemistry in the film, too. And they have some good chemistry in the film, too. The action's fun. The soundtrack is solid, and the cinematography is solid, too. Unfortunately, what we have here is a movie that it starts off promising at first, but then crashes and burns by throwing in these amount of plot twists at your face to the point where it just loses you in the end. And I'm with you on the CGI effects, Soren. Like, Jesus Christ. While it's not as bad as some of the other CGI effects I witnessed last year, it did make me question, how did this cost $200 million to make? Like, where did it go? Also, like, not only are Catherine O'Hara, Bryan Cranston, and Samuel L. Jackson wasted in this movie since they're not given all that much to do, but worst of all, the movie advertised something in the trailers and in the posters saying that, oh, if you like Henry Cavill, he's the main lead in the film. Guess what? He's not in the film all that much. Like, what kind of advertising is that? Like, he's only in for the film for like 30 to 40 minutes of it, and then that's it. Like, what kind of advertising is that? What kind of false advertising is that? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So, what I was trying to say is that, the movie advertises by saying that, oh, if you love Henry Cavill, he's the main lead in the film. Guess what? He's only in 30 to 40 minutes of the film, and that's it. Like, what kind of false advertising is that?
Yeah.
And and also the comedy just does not work as well either, and the screenplay is so poorly done that it also can't even decide whether if it wants to be like an action film or a comedy film, and that really was disappointing. And yeah, I really did not like this film at all. I mean, well, it's not just a scam, Ethan. It's more of like false advertising. Yeah, I really did not like this film at all. This is easily Matthew Vaughn's worst movie he's done so far. 3 out of 10, or D+.
Yeah. Next, I have Orion in the Dark, and this is the kind of movie where the ideas are definitely there, but they don't fall through all the way. It's got some compelling themes about fear and the juxtaposition of light and dark. The music is pretty, and the animation is real creative, minus the human designs that could have been better. However, the story was kind of all over the place, especially in the third act with this girl character that really could have been cut out or written around. So I do appreciate what Charlie Kaufman was trying to say, but if that one subplot was cut out, this movie would have been superb. But as it is, it still gets the seal of approval. Next is Lisa Frankenstein. And I gotta say, for Zelda Williams' directorial debut, she more than pulled it off. The combination of Burness horror and high school romance is both fascinating and heartfelt, especially thanks to both Kathleen Newton and Cole Sprouse's performances. The music is killer.
And on-screen chemistry.
The production values are colorful and gothic, the makeup is fantastic, and it actually earned its PG-13 rating, leading up to an ending that's both strange and emotional. If this is how the director left her mark, I'm looking forward to what she does next. I'll give Lisa Frankenstein the seal of cinema.
I really like this one a lot. Hold on, let me. I really like this one a lot. For Zelda Williams' first film she's done, I thought this was a. Hold on, I'll be right back. And I'm back again.
Hopefully your laptop doesn't share itself this time.
I hope not either. All right, so for Zelda Williams' first ever film, I thought she did a really good job. I thought this was a really good day. Lisa Frankenstein was a dark yet funny yet hilarious like horror comedy that also serves as a brilliant throwback to those classic 80s horror comedy films. Now I do want to get the issues out of the way first. There were a couple pacing issues that the film suffers through in the first and third act. And although the comedic and horror tones were balanced well, there were times where the change of tonal shifts did feel a bit jarring and uneven at times. 20% of the humor falls flat, and without spoiling what happens, there were a couple moments that had me going, oh, come on, how did you not see that? But despite that, though, I really liked this movie. The story felt highly engaging. Diablo Cody's screenplay was nicely written. Zelda Williams' directing was great. The acting was very good, especially from Catherine Newton and Cole Sprouse, who really delivered some really good on-screen chemistry too. The soundtrack was great. The cinematography was excellent, especially in terms of its lighting. The editing was solid. 80% of the humor works very well, especially when it came to some of the gross-out gags that not only served its purpose, but used in a clever way. Take notes, Babylon. Very good production design and great makeup. And overall, I thought it was a really good film. 8 out of 10 or a B+.
Now I get to a movie that I just want to get over with because it's probably the worst fucking thing in existence, and that's Man Web. I know you all heard everyone bashing this movie and calling it the worst thing ever, so I'm just going to be fair and say it's not even that bad. In fact, it's so much worse.
Yeah, really?
Not since Boss Baby Family Business has a movie tested my patience and baffled me on how Hollywood can still make movies this bad, even after over a century entertaining the masses. When the central cast, who seems to be directed with the same energy as watching paint dry, and just having no sense of chemistry whatsoever. Jakara Johnson especially looks like she's constipated throughout the runtime and doesn't want anyone to know about it. The screenplay is an absolute joke. It's less focused on giving us an actual story and more focused on bombarding us with exposition like a fucking radio show. The editing
it's so obsessed. It is so obsessed with characters explaining shit, like shoving exposition down people's throats like they're not going to get it, and they're a bunch of fucking kindergartners, even though we're not that stupid, people.
The editing and cinematography just have no sense of direction whatsoever, like with the vomit-inducing Spain shots and the quick-cut ads. It's like this was shot by a toddler and edited by a cat walking on the keyboard. And while it's not focusing on action sequences about as thrilling as doing your taxes, it's putting you to sleep as the action is few and far between, as all the characters do is talk exposition in the blindest way imaginable. Oh, and one more thing. What the fuck even is that ADR?
Oh my god, yeah. That ADR. Like I'm not kidding, folks. Folks, we're not kidding when I say this. I rarely talk about ADR in films, but But early on in the film, we see Ezekiel Sims played by this French actor, and since he can't speak English, his voice is like dubbed over in ADR, and you couldn't. And oh my god, like he's supposed to be speaking like this, like I will find her, and I will kill them. When it couldn't be more obvious of how bad the ADR is.
The costumes, while the four main women admittedly look kinda hot in them, look like something you'd find in a comic convention, so fan service can only get you so far. Speaking of fan service, the only thing worse than playing Britney Spears is toxic during an action scene, even though that song wouldn't come out until a year after this movie takes place, is a forced Easter egg to remind you that this is a Spidey-led Spider-Man movie. First of all, Ben Parker is in this movie, and we see his sister-in-law Mary give birth to Peter for 1 second, and honestly, this was even more shooting than the time Universal guilt trip Ellen Burstyn into Exorcist Believer. Not just that, they also put in the famous great power comes great responsibility line. Oh, they don't present it as it is. They got it completely backwards. They say when you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
That's not how that works.
Oh yeah, Ethan, the product placement. You thought the Double Team's Coca-Cola product placement was bad? And having the product placement save the day? In this movie, they literally shove a Coca-Cola sign on top of the villain, killing him.
Oh my god, this fucking movie!
I'm actually looking forward to Borderlands now. I mean it. I take back every mean thing I said about Borderlands. Because even if that movie doesn't look good, I'll doubt it'll be anything on the same level as this septic tank. In fact, I think I'm gonna apologize to Morbius, because at least Jared Leto was making an attempt. This movie is like they didn't even try. This movie is everything wrong with the superhero genre today, and the fact that there's going to be more of these Spidey-less universe movies than MCU movies this year just makes me all the more fearful. This movie doesn't just get an easy zero grades. This is not only the first movie since the Boss Baby Family Business to get my rare 0 out of 10, but after months of thinking about it, I have decided that Madam Weiner has officially taken the place of Disaster Movie as the worst movie I have ever seen in my entire life. Because as annoying and ill-conceived as Disaster Movie was, at least it's almost self-aware of its cheapness. At least it can make fun of itself. At least it tries to be entertaining. You could argue it tries too hard, but it tries nonetheless. This movie thinks it can be the next big thing with as little effort as possible. I have never seen a movie so lifeless and desperate to waste millions of dollars, dozens of talented people behind and in front of the screen, and the integrity of Spider-Man. And it doesn't even attempt to make an effort in how it was written, produced, edited, or promoted. Sony, Columbia Pictures, if this is how you start your 100th anniversary, you can only pray it won't be as bad as the disastrous centennials that Disney and Warner Brothers had last year.
Yeah, really. This movie. Give me a second. This movie fucking sucks. Like, I'm not kidding. This is not only the worst movie I've seen this year so far, but this might dethrone Dear Evan Hansen as being the worst movie I've seen this decade so far. This is everything wrong with superhero films nowadays. And people have been wondering, why is the superhero fatigue real all of a sudden? This is why. That's why. Like, I already mentioned the ADR, the bad ADR, and the acting is absolutely atrocious. Like, for some of the actors, I can, like Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Moner, and stuff, I can at least excuse them because they must have known they were in a bad movie, and they tried to give it their all, even despite terrible chemistry they have. But with Dakota Johnson, come here. Come here. Come here. You have no excuse to turn in what I consider your worst performance of your career. When you make the 50 Shades movies that you were in look more Academy Award worthy in comparison, you know you turned in the worst performance of your career. And I mean that for a fact. I really, really mean that. Hi, Jose. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you'd tune into this or the popcorn panel on David's channel.
But yeah. Also, I'm not kidding when I also say this too. Not only is it poorly directed, and not only is the story so poorly done, but the Easter eggs and nods to like Peter Parker and Spider-Man felt really insulting and unacceptable. Especially in this one scene where they're having this baby shower for Mary Parker, all because she's giving birth to her son Peter, and then all of a sudden the movie calls time out to play a game called guess the baby's name, and like they can't even like and the characters can't even say Peter Parker's name, even though from the very beginning we already know that it's Peter fucking Parker. This movie also has some of the worst action sequences I've ever seen. Not just some of the worst action sequences I've ever seen in a superhero film, but not only does this movie have some of the worst action sequences I've ever seen in a superhero film or in any other film in general, because of how poorly edited it. Oh my god! Like how poorly edited it was. Like poorly edited it was. But I'm not kidding when I say this. This movie has, and I'm not bullshitting when I say this. This is the worst CGI effects I've ever seen. The worst CGI visual effects I've ever seen in a comic book film. Yes, even worse than Fan 4 Stick. And even worse than Catwoman. Even worse than Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Even worse than any of the worst superhero films that have some of the worst visual effects you would ever see in a comic book film.
Or even the X-Men Origins work print that leaked early.
Yeah, really. How this movie cost $80 million to make, yet the visual effects in this movie look like something out of a PlayStation 2 game? Unacceptable! We live in the year 2024, and yet these visual effects artists can't even realize that this type of visual effects belongs in something like in the early 2000s? Are you kidding me?
And what makes it worse is that this movie cost $100 million to make, and yet recently the Godzilla Minus One, which cost only $15 million, won the Best Visual Effects Oscar. Yeah, there's Out, and then there's... Go on.
Let that sink in for a bit. Let that sink in for a bit. Godzilla Minus One cost $15 million to make, and it won Best Visual Effects, and yet, and for what I can look, that movie has incredible visual effects, I haven't seen the movie, but I did see some clips of the visual effects, and honestly, they looked fucking incredible. But that's not the point. My point is that this movie cost $15 million to make. That movie cost $15 million to make, and that had brilliant visual effects, while Madam Web cost $80 million to make, and yet it has the worst visual effects I've ever seen in a comic book film. Let that sink in for a bit. What does that tell you? Oh yeah, and the amount of product placement that was in the film. Like what the fuck? Like, it was bad enough there was a lot of product placement in the film, but as Ethan mentioned, a Coca-Cola logo kills Ezekiel Sims.
This is frying the Coke all over again.
Yeah, really, and it's just holy shit. Holy shit, this was bad. I mean, this is the first time since Dirty Grandpa and the Emoji Movie that I had ever felt these following things. That I had felt these following things while watching the film. It angered me. It insulted my intelligence. It left me speechless with what I just watched. It made me go this insane. And it nearly made me hate movies. And yes, fuck this ending. Fuck this ending.
Especially when they reused the shot from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, and worst of all, with how they butchered that, with great power comes great responsibility. Great power comes great responsibility. Quote. Like, what were you thinking? Oh god, the cinematography. Yeah, with the zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. Like, what are you doing? Like guys. Like, whoa, guys, stop with the camera shaking and the zoom ins. We get it. You're making a Jason Bourne ripoff. Hold the camera steady.
Extreme close up.
Extreme close up. Whoa! Like, oh my god. Hold the camera steady, guys. Yeah. Ed from Ed and Eddie couldn't have said it best. Yeah. Oh my. Why, thank you very much. Oh yeah, the pacing. This movie was 2 hours long, yet it felt like it was going on for 3 fucking hours. And one last thing about the editing that really pissed me off. It was so poorly edited to the point where it felt like not only did it feel like a toddler and a kindergartner edited this movie, but there were times where the movie felt like it was having a goddamn seizure. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck was I watching? I've seen a lot of bad films that came out this decade so far, like whether it's like Fantasy Island, Songbird, Doolittle, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Tom and Jerry, Dear Evan Hansen, Moonfall, Morbius, Jurassic World Dominion or Expendables 4 and The Exorcist Believer. But I'm not kidding when I say this.
The after sequels, Cuties, Disenchanted, Winnie the Pooh blind bullshit.
I've seen a lot of bad films from this decade so far, but this honestly takes the cake. It's not only the worst movie I've seen in 2024, but it is also the worst movie I've seen this decade so far. I'm dead serious. This movie isn't even 3 months old yet, and already the nightmares and the trauma I faced with that film are still with me. I had never felt this angry and this shocked at how bad the movie is since, like I said, Dirty Grandpa, the 50 Shades trilogy, and the Emoji Movie. This movie is an absolute disgrace, and those who made it should be downright ashamed themselves. Not just the studios, not just Sony, Columbia Pictures and stuff, but everybody. But the writers should be ashamed. The directors should be ashamed. I know it's not right to harp on writers and directors nowadays, given the recent strikes that were going on, as well as like some of the other actors as well as actors given the recent SAG-AFTRA strikes. But I'm sorry, if none of them does a good job, if none of those people did a good job with writing, directing, or acting in the film, then I'm sorry, they deserve to be called out. They okay, not called out, but they deserve some criticism for it. It's like how Cody Leach described it. Like, it's like in one of his videos. It's like if you were to go to a restaurant. It's like if you were to go to a restaurant and all of a sudden the food turns out bad, and then all of a sudden like excuse me. Like, would you want to eat the food that was like this bad? No, absolutely not. You would complain. You would go up to the people who made this and tell them what a terrible job they did for this. Oh my God, this film hurt my brain. This film literally hurt my brain. This film is an absolute disgrace. And we'll talk about Chris Stuckman's video on it after I give out my final grade. Okay, so I'm gonna finish on what I'm about to say with this film. Yeah, overall, this is easily one of the worst superhero films I've ever seen in my life. This is like on the same level as Catwoman. This is like on the same level as Catwoman. Yeah, I went that far. I mean, when you make some of the worst superhero films I've seen from the last decade, I've seen from this decade and the last decade so far, like The Flash, Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, and even some of the movies that people consider the worst of the superhero films, like Batman and Robin or Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. When you make those movies look good in comparison, as well as Morbius, obviously, you know we have a problem. Oh yeah, and that scene where they the scene where they play Britney Spears toxic, like. This movie is an absolute disgrace, and I can't see any other movie topping Madam Web as the worst film of the year. I just cannot see anything topping Madam Web as the worst film of the year. Because if I see anything that's worse than Madam Web this year, I'm going to fucking lose it. Fuck this movie. fuck this movie, fuck this writing, and fuck everything about this movie. This movie is getting. This movie is not only getting. This movie is getting two things. Number one, this is the second movie since The Exorcist Believer where it's earning the Burn in Hell rating, and of course, it is indeed getting the very first 0 out of 10 or an F. Boo! Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. Fuck it straight to hell with a dirty fucking dick. Oh yeah, and before we move on to our review of Dune Part 2, we gotta talk about Chris Stuckman's
Megamind 2.
Right, Megamind 2. Before we move on though, we gotta talk about Chris Stuckman's like the ill-fated video on like Madam Web. And honestly, Chris Stuckman. Oh, how I lost all respect for you. I mean, dude, there's a reason why. I mean, like he made a video involving like Madam Web, except he didn't like talk about Madam Web at all, and instead like went on to say, you have no idea how hard it is to make a movie. We do know how hard it is to make a movie, but if a movie is bad, there is no excuse for. Like, there is no excuse. Like, sometimes they need to be called out because they made a bad film, and sometimes they need to take an L and take the criticism. I'm not going to say anything else about that. But anyway, moving on from this. My problem with Chris Stuckman nowadays is that he's basically like, this is the problem I have with Chris Stuckman nowadays, and why I no longer watch his videos. Like, dude, I understand where he's coming from in some parts, but my problem is that you basically clickbaited people into thinking you're going to review Madam Web, even though you're not. And if you're actually reviewing that, like it doesn't matter if you're reviewing Madam Web. If you're reviewing Madam Web, why are you clickbaiting people into thinking you're actually reviewing that film? And it also doesn't help that he has a lot of sponsors on his channel. I usually don't have a problem with that, but with Chris Stuckman, it's like, dude, this is really stupid. And another problem I have with Chris Stuckman nowadays is that hold on. It's just my problem with Chris Stuckman nowadays, and this is another problem. Like I have with him is that he's basically being a hypocrite at this point. Like, we get it, Chris Stuckman. Movies are fiction. We get that. You don't need to shove it down our throats like that, though. Like, especially in his recent review of Challenges, where he had the audacity to say that. Like, again, we get it. Movies are fiction. You don't need to shove it down our throats like that. Like, dude, like, and by your logic, let me just say this right now, and this is involving your Madam Web video. By your logic, are you saying that just because like people made this movie, like, are you saying that this is what I don't get? Are you saying that even like why like are you saying that just because people made this movie, even if it's bad, that we have to give them praise for it all the time, even if it's bad, even if we know it's a bad film? Like, dude, you can be a filmmaker and also be a film critic at the same time. Like, and that other thing that thing I just said earlier involving clickbaiting people, like, why are you alienating your audience by saying that if you talk shit about movies, then you are toxic? Need I remind you that you once did a series called Hilariosity? Like, need I remind you of that? Yeah, unfortunately, and it's just I don't have a problem. My problem isn't just him transitioning from like not being a film reviewer anymore. My problem isn't that. The problem is how he's basically just becoming more unrealistic with his reviews nowadays. Like, he's not being honest nor realistic with what he's saying. That's the problem I have with Chris Stuckman nowadays. Like, come on, dude. I mean, look, why I understand he's coming. Like I said, why I understand where he's coming from. My problem with this take is that if people don't like the movie, then there's a good reason for that. And it's just like, and honestly, the Angry Joe Show. I'm not making this up, by the way. The Angry Joe Show actually commented on Chris's review. On Chris's review, on Chris's video, and he said this very perfectly. Let me read this. Never feel bad about or straight out refuse to criticize some harshly when that piece of media deserves it. The second you do that, you are no longer a reviewer. And that's not bashing Madam Web. That's telling it like it is. And you need to continue to do that to maintain credibility. People will question it if you are being kind to something else for other reasons besides the merits of the media, if you refuse to criticize harshly when warranted. Madam Web is a bait and switch. It's a waste of money. It's a blatant cash in from untalented hats, from some of the most shockingly bad writing in any superhero film today. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention too about the writing. This is from the same idiots that brought us Gods of Egypt and Morbius. The same jackasses that wrote those films wrote this piece of shit. And yeah, he did. So continuing on what I was saying, people need to know that. And indeed they do, Joe. I feel that because you are a filmmaker, you act as if you can do certain things anymore. You can't do certain things anymore, or can't now do your job as effectively anymore, which shouldn't be at all the case. You can do both. You could still do both, Chris. Who are you worried about offending so much? This video was so much soft trending when it's not warranted. You talked about everything else but this steaming pile of crap. When we want to know what you thought of it, that's why we clicked. That's why we watched your videos. Never forget that for every shitty writer continues to do movies like these, there are thousands of other writers and directors like yourself who are trying to make ends meet who are far more talented getting passed over. you owe it to your audience to review something harshly when it deserves it, not tiptoe it around or sidestep it. And just because you bash a film doesn't mean you are bashing the person or people who made it. Sometimes it's warranted so all those involved can do better or step out of the way so that others can take their place. And he's right. Angry Joe is so right for what he said. And honestly, that's the problem I have with Chris Stuckman nowadays. It's just he's not being realistic. He's not being honest. He's not like bashing films anymore. Well, the bashing films thing I can understand, but he's not being realistic or honest. Oh, same with me, Soren. And it's just like, dude, honestly, it's just being a movie cheerleader and stuff, that's not realistic. Excuse me. Yeah, that's my problem. That's my main problem with the review as well. You're not alone on that. So in conclusion, Chris Stuckman, I may be looking forward to your Shelby Oates film, but at the same time, I'm very disappointed in you, dude.
Yeah, you better hope that Shelby Oaks works out, especially with Mike Flanagan.
Being the executive producer of it, yeah.
But yeah, this was a hard blow for you.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in you, Chris Stuckman. I am very disappointed in you. I'm not angry, but I am disappointed. And with that out of the way, let's just move on to the next review.
Speaking of not angry but disappointed, Megamind versus the Dune Syndicate. This is a movie where where people have been hating it left and right from the very announcement alone. And unlike Madam Web, where the hate is more than warranted, I do agree that Megamind 2 is bad, but I found it to be more run-of-the-mill bad. I already made an entire video about this, but I will say that there are some tiny concepts that would have benefited in a better movie. The action is fun enough, and there are a few laughs here and there, and the voice cast is at least trying. However, here's my biggest problem. It's nothing more than a feature-like pilot to the Peacock series, and as a result, to call the animation shady would be a humongous understatement.
Oh yeah, really. Like we're talking like I haven't seen the movie, but I remember seeing Shea Friller's review of it. Which, by the way, guys, check out his review of it. It is fucking hysterical. Like the animation, we're talking North of the North levels of bad.
And yet, this movie still has better CGI than Madam Cunt.
Yeah, really.
Plus, the writing can be either repeated from the first movie or so stupid that you can't even wrap your brain around it. Like, I know it's become a meme thanks to Shea Friller's video, but all Megamind had to do to get rid of these guys is use a dehydration gun and place them back in jail. There, movie over. So, as a distraction to keep your kids entertained, it's relatively harmless compared to the worst shit you can show them. But at the same time, there's so much better shit that you can show them as well. And as a sequel to a beloved classic we've been waiting over a decade, I expected better, so I'll give Megamind 2 the seal mediocrity.
I still get a kick out of it. I still get a kick out of that. I still get a kick out of that video. Like shoot him with the fucking dehydration gun. It is the easiest solution in the whole damn world. What the fuck is your problem?
And not to mention this clip.
Oh my god. I'm still kicking over that. Play it, Soren. Play it. if you could find it.
I would, but my phone is being really slow right now.
Oh God. Oh God. Um.
No, I'm just gonna play it on this. There it is.
Oh, that one. They even reference Chocolate Rain. How do you do, fellow kids?
See, Chris Stuckman, that's how you critique a movie.
Oh my God. Oh my God. His best to be able to date, in my opinion.
Anyways,
Right.
On to the final review. The Business Dune Part 2.
Yes.
After prior attempts have failed to capture the spirit of Frank Herbert's iconic franchise, this franchise continues to be the definitive screen adaptation. Just like the first movie, this movie boasts a fantastic cast from the likes of Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Austin Butler, and Christopher Walken, with all of them bringing their A game into this. The lore behind the world of Arrakis is a trip to explore, and even at nearly 3 hours, it just breezes by, unlike the David Lynch version, which was technically shorter than the first movie, yet somehow felt longer. Hans Zimmer's musical score is about as majestic as it's always been, and the production values and action set pieces alone make it worth seeing on the biggest screen imaginable. After such a dark age has dwindled Hollywood for months, it's a relief to see this dominate the world because this is hands down this generation's Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. If the third movie is just as revolutionary as these first two have been, I guarantee this series will be a landmark adored by the masses for decades to come. I'll give this movie the seal of cinema.
This is hands down the best movie I've seen in 2024 so far. I'm not kidding when I say that not only did I love Dune Part 2 a bit more than the first film, but this is absolutely one of the most exciting and exhilarating sci-fi films I've ever seen in my life. Like, there are so many things I loved about this movie. Like this movie cost $190 million to make, and boy was it very well done here. Boy was the money well spent with this. Not just in terms of its spectacular visual effects. Well, yeah, in terms of its spectacular visual effects, but in the way like they shot everything, but in the way it was handled. Like, this is the best visual effects I've seen in the movie this year so far. Like, man, if this doesn't get nominated for best visual effects at next year's Oscars, I'm gonna fucking riot. And that worm scene, that sandworm scene was just spectacular. On top of great sound design, visual effects, and editing, the story felt well structured and highly engaging. The screenplay was fantastic especially in terms of characterization, dialogue, and how they brought the religious aspect of the film. The acting was Denis Villeneuve's directing was fantastic. The acting, especially from Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, Florence Pugh, Dave Bautista, Christopher Walken, Stellan Skarsgård, and Harvey Bardem were terrific. But Austin Butler, like, holy shit. Holy shit. This might be my favorite performance he's given out in his career. Like, not only did he look unrecognizable as the villain, but his villain character is like a vision of what it would look like if Caligula was reincarnated in the future. Like, I knew going in he was going to be sinister, but the question was, how sinister was he going to be? And soon enough, I found out when I saw the flick. He did a wonderful job, and
He did a wonderful job performing in the film. And yes, Bung Ho Webb, take notes. I know they're two different movies, but I thought we'd bring them up. Hans Zimmer's musical score was both epic and fantastic. The cinematography and editing are both terrific. This movie has some of the best battle sequences I've ever seen, since they were both exhilarating and breathtaking to watch, especially with how they were shot, edited, and choreographed. It's expertly paced throughout its 165-minute runtime. And as I stated before, the movie has excellent sound design, amazing production design, and a very well executed ending that already has me hungry to see the third part. And yes, he was also excellent as Elvis Presley and Elvis, but I would argue I love this performance in Dune Part 2 even more than that. This is easily the best movie I've seen this year so far, and one of the best sci-fi films I've seen in a long time. And with that, Dune Part 2 is the very first film of 2024 to get a 10 out of 10 or an A+. Well done, Denis Villeneuve. Well done. Well done, Denis Villeneuve, and to everybody involved with this epic film. Well done.
All right, that's it for.
Bring on Part 3, please. I don't care if I have to wait years for it. Bring on Part 3, please.
All right, that's it for all our movie reviews, and onto the new segment we have. Now, for this new segment, I thought I'd start implementing onto the show. I'd noticed while watching some episodes of Cisco and Eva that they usually end the show by talking about either the dog of the week or the video pick of the week, talk about a bad movie or recommend an older movie, respectively. So I figured I'd do something similar and talk about both a good movie and a bad movie from before the past year at the end of every show to, I don't know. And this pick of the show for this podcast is 2017's The Breadwinner, which has nothing to do with annoying ducks delivering bread, so already is an improvement over that Nickelodeon cartoon. In all seriousness, no, Cartoon Saloon has always been known for their interesting animated movies like Wolfwalkers and Song of the Sea and Secret of Kells. And from what I've seen, this may be their masterpiece. The story about a tween girl in Afghanistan who dresses like a boy to make money for her family lends itself to a plethora of potential, basically being Schindler's List meets Touchy. The story is beyond emotional as it showcases the unfair practices the culture practiced back in the day, and it left me in a tense state from the opening to the closing credits. And being an animated film, it lends itself to some stunning visuals. For a while, I thought Cars 3 was my favorite film of 2017, but after seeing this, it hands down topped it. I still think Coco was a worthy Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature, but part of me wishes they chose this overlooked gem instead. Now for the dog of the show, I'm gonna have to go with a movie I saw a couple weeks ago, that being the 2015 reboot of National Lampoon's Vacation, simply titled Vacation.
Oh, God.
Now, the first four Vacation movies had a good balance between adult humor and heart, but this one seemed more interested in exploring the adult humor while also having some of the most obnoxious characters you have to follow for 99 minutes straight.
That little brother was just that little brother fucking pissed me off.
Witness as they go from one annoying situation to another, from getting drunk while revisiting the mother's old college, to getting tricked by locals to bathe in sewage water while they rob their rented van, to whatever the fuck that four-corner monument sequence was.
It made no sense whatsoever.
Not to mention the van they do rent looks like it more belongs in Inspector Gadget more than National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah, really.
I will give this movie 2 points, however. One for Charlie Day and one for Chevy Chase, as they were the only ones to make me laugh. But
yeah, I agree with that.
But otherwise, I would not recommend 2015's Vacation to anyone, even the most hardcore fans of the first 4 movies.
All right, so my pick of the podcast is my pick of the podcast was my favorite film of last year. Was my favorite film of last year, if you guys remember, and it's easily Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
One of his masterpieces for sure.
And honestly, this might be my favorite film that he's done. I love The Dark Knight. I love Dunkirk, but this is his masterpiece he's done, in my opinion. Like, for a movie that's 3 hours long, this was a stunning epic it does a fantastic job exploring who J. Robert Oppenheimer was, other than being the father of the atomic bomb, and how Christopher Nolan navigates us through this 3 hour runtime while cutting back and forth to the past and present is nothing short of spectacular. Nothing short of spectacular. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. are both fantastic in the film, and all the other cast are fantastic too. Whether it's like Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and everybody was like fantastic. On top of the excellent production values and costume design, and that test scene, which blew me away with how gripping it was, and on top of the movie having my favorite ending of last year, Oppenheimer is a masterclass of filmmaking and storytelling, and it is, and in my opinion, this is my favorite movie that Christopher Nolan has done, and it is easily my pick for this for this podcast. As for the dog, well, I'm gonna have to do, and yes, me too. Him winning best director as well as best picture, fucking well deserved. We were hoping Nolan would end up winning an Oscar one day, and guess what? He finally got it.
Now for Denisovich to win an Oscar for either Dune 2 or Dune 3, and if he does, our faith in Hollywood would go up.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when it rains, it pours. It's just. I mean, 2 years ago, I had Everything Everywhere All at Once as my favorite film of 2022, and that won Best Picture. And last year, I had Oppenheimer winning Best, and I had Oppenheimer as my number one film of that year, and that also won Best Picture. So this is the second year in a row that my number one film of 2020, my number one film of the year, ended up winning Best Picture, and honestly, it fucking deserved it. And now for the dog. The dog. Well, I usually go by recent movies that just came out, and yeah, you guys already know what my dog is for this. It's Madam Web.
Yeah.
We already talked about how bad this film is, so I'm not going to talk much about it. But I'm not going to talk much about it. But everything we said about Madam Web is why it is easily the dog of this podcast, in my opinion.
When this movie made me apologize to Seltzerberg, you know there's a problem.
Yeah, and when it made me apologize to the and when Dakota Johnson is even worse here than she was in those 50 Shades movies, you know we have a problem. I can't stand those 50 Shades movies, but at least she was trying in those films. In this one, though, there was no excuse. There was no excuse to act this soulless and not care. Yeah, Madam Web is easily my dog of the show.
Yeah. Finally, we look forward to this summer with our least anticipated movies and our most anticipated movies. As for my least anticipated, my dishonorable mentions are Back to Black, which I hear mediocre things about, Beverly Hills Cop 4, which looks like a sequel Too Little Too Late, My Spy the Eternal City. I did like the first one, but this one seems a bit unnecessary. Twisters, we'll see how it goes.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing that.
Alien Romulus, since I didn't really like an Alien movie since Aliens, and AVP, and the reboot of the Crow.
Yeah, I have some skepticism about the reboot as well.
My number 5 is a tie between the Garfield movie and Despicable Me 4, which both look mediocre. Even if the Garfield movie is by the director of one of my favorite comedies, The Emperor's New Groove. I'm sorry. My number 4 is The Crow. Excuse me. Number 3 is the Sandy Cheeks movie, which leaked online earlier this year, but I did not see that leak because I want to give this a fair shot when it comes out in August. Number 2 is Eli Roth's Borderlands, and number 1 is an adaptation that looks like it's gonna get everything wrong. Harold and the Purple Crayon.
You know what, Søren? You and I have the same 2 and 1. You and I have the same 2 and 1 as well. As for my least, number 5 is Despicable Me 4. Well, say goodbye to like praising Illumination for a little while, because this looks like crap. Number 4, The Strangers Chapter 1. I have not been a fan of the Strangers movies at all. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me a second.
Especially since you know who's making these new Strangers movies? Rennie fucking Harlan. The director of the movie that made Exorcist Believer look like Avengers Endgame.
And worst of all, the same director that directed Emmett fucking Cullen as Hercules. Let me repeat that again. Emmett fucking Cullen as Hercules.
AKA the movie that made the Dwayne Johnson Hercules movie look like Ben-Hur. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, yeah, and I saw the trailer for it when I went to go see Challengers, and yeah, it just does not look good at all. Does not look good at all. And this is supposed to be the start of this trilogy that takes place before the first film, which, oh great. By the way, if you're wondering my thoughts on the first two, the first Strangers movie was okay. It was a decent home invasion film, but I really wish the writing was a lot better. The Strangers Prey at Night, on the other hand, was one of the worst movies I saw from 2018. And yep, this one looks like shit. I'm well aware that it has its fans, but sadly, I'm not one of them. Oh yeah, and to answer your question, that would suck. That would really suck.
And like I said a few years ago, they already made a PG-13 GTA movie called Free Guy, but that was its own movie, so...
Yeah, Free Guy's a much better. Free Guy was really good. Number 3 is a movie that just recently came out, but I'm still putting it on the list anyway. Tarot. Like a horror film about the tarot cards. Like, are you serious? Oh yeah, and did I forget to mention that it's by our old friends at Screen Gems? Our old friends at Screen Gems. Sony's Conveyor Belt Studio.
AKA the Jason Blum of Sony. Except at least Jason Blum produced them. But at least Jason Blum did produce some good movies. But
Yeah, and to be fair, Screen Gems did distribute some good films too. But did distribute some diamonds in the rough, whether it's like Girl Fight, Snatch, Missing, Searching, and Don't Breathe. But unfortunately, that's about it. Oh yeah, and Attack the Block as well. But again, that's it. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, that's just. Moving on. And then number 2, I have the same number 2 as Soren, Borderlands. Directed by Eli Roth. Need I say more? And number 1, Ethan pretty much gave this away. Gave this away, one of what to call it. But you know what? Let's do it. Harold and the Purple Fucking Dildo.
when just looking at the book cover and the poster, and even let me repeat that. When you just look at the book, sorry, my tongue twisters. When just the book cover and the poster alone look totally wrong, you know you're fucked up.
You know we have a problem. And the movie hasn't even come out yet. And when I saw the trailer for it, I was baffled with how it looked, especially with the CGI. Like, good Lord. Hopefully the CGI in the final product isn't as bad as in the trailer, but I have a bad feeling about this one. Really bad feeling. Yeah. Easily my least anticipated film of the summer. No questions.
And I know I already did this reference on my DeviantArt account, but to quote William Hurt in A History of Violence,
What was the quote?
how do you fuck that up?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it has a good chance of topping Man of Web, but this definitely looks like shit.
I don't know, because at least Harold in the Purple Crayon looks like it's going to try to entertain.
Yeah.
As for our most anticipated movies of the summer, my honorable mentions are the Oscar-nominated Robot Dreams, Bad Boys Ride or Die, The Bike Riders, and M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. Number 10 is Richard Linklater's Hitman. Number 9 is Kevin Costner's return to the director's chair, Horizon and American Saga, Chapters 1 and 2. I do like Kevin Costner as a director, minus The Postman, which was not good. By the way, you want to know my favorite scene in The Postman? There's a climax where there's this huge army on one side and one huge army on the other side. And how do they resolve it? 2 men wrestling on the fucking grass.
That was so stupid that was genius.
My number 8 is John Krasinski's If. Imaginary
I'm excited
Friend.
for that one.
Number 7, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
That looks really good.
Number 6, The Fall Guy. Not that video game, the TV show adaptation. Number 5 is Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. Number 4, A Quiet Place Day 1.
That's number 4 as well.
Number 3, Deadpool and Wolverine. Number 2, Inside Out 2. And number 1, Furiosa.
We have the same number 1. So, all right. So, let's cut to my honorable mentions and then wrap this up. So, my honorable mentions are The Fall Guy, Twisters, Deadpool and Wolverine, the Oscar-nominated Robot Dreams, Richard Linklater's Hitman, John Krasinski's If, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Kevin Costner's Horizon and American Saga chapters 1 and 2. The Bike Riders, directed by Jeff Nichols and starring Austin Butler. Seriously, that looks really good, and I cannot wait to see that. And finally, I saw the TV Glow. I saw the trailer for it when I went to go see Civil War, and this honestly, and I first heard about it when it first premiered at the Sundance Film Festival earlier this year, and it was one of the best reviewed films on at that film festival. And after seeing the trailer for it, I was really interested in checking this one out. All right, so top 5 now. Number 5, the movie to end this trilogy, Maxine. Number 4, I have the same number 4 as Soren, A Quiet Place Day 1. Number 3, Inside Out 2. Number 2, Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. And finally, number 1, the same number 1 as Soren and I did, as Soren has, Furiosa, A Mad Max Saga.
All right. That's it for another podcast.
Well, Yep, we're just about done with tonight's podcast, and guys, thank you again for tuning in to tonight's podcast. You guys are the best, and I really do thank you for holding on to us for these past like four years and stuff, and also thank you again for still tuning in when I was facing technical difficulties. I do apologize for that. Hopefully I'll get this resolved within the Hopefully this thing will be resolved within the next podcast. And before you ask, no, this is not the last podcast to be featured in this room. We're still going to be planning one or two more of these before I move out at the end of June. Before I move to a different location at the end of June. But yeah, I just tried to mention that. But yeah. Yeah, thank you guys for watching tonight's podcast, and as always, be sure to subscribe to Soren Saunders on his YouTube channel. Give him the love he absolutely deserves. The link is in the description below. And until we meet again at the end of May for episode 46 of the FilmBrony Podcast, hope you all have a great night and take it easy. See you later. Sorry. Take it easy. See you later, and have a good night.